Replit's mission has always been about making programming more accessible so that more and more people can make applications and code and spin up a database you can deploy and everything you need to go from an end-to-end process. But ultimately, the thing that's always been hard, the hardest is code. Someone who works in operations got a quote from a company that he spent $400 in a couple of weeks building it on Replit. His boss bought it from him for $32,000. The people closest to the problems have the best ideas to solve these problems.
What are some developments you're looking out for in the next 3 to 6 months, where you're like, hey, like really pumped about?
I'm really hoping and I'm sort of excited about.
Amjad, welcome to the podcast. Only one place we can start, I guess. The news you shared in the last couple of days, Replit's revenue is absolutely exploding. In 6 months, you guys have gone from 10 million to 100 million ARR. How? Like, that's the question everyone wants to know. Like, how'd you guys do this?
Replit's mission has always been about making programming more accessible so that more and more people can make applications and code. And our approach has been, okay, let's make the infrastructure super easier. Let's make it so that you can spit up a development environment easy. You can collaborate easy. You can install dependencies. You can spin up a database. You can deploy and everything you need to go from an end-to-end process. But ultimately, the thing that's always been hard, the hardest is code. So Replit maybe perhaps made making things even if it is like twice as easy, you need it to be 10 times easier. So I've been thinking about software development agents for a long time. I gave a TED talk in 2023 about it. And in early 2024, it felt like we're almost there. It felt like the models are starting to become smarter, better coders. It felt like they can work for longer, which I think is a very crucial thing for agents. And so scrapped every other project we're working on and told the team we have one goal, which is making programming 10 times easier, making coding 10 times easier. And the way to make coding 10 times easier is to build a kick-ass agent. And so, it took, 8 months or so, maybe a little more, to design and build the agent. We released it in September. It was first of its kind. It was the first true software development agent that you can try. It was kind of a category creator. And that was in beta. December, we got out of beta, and that's when the growth exploded. And then we had another inflection point in February when we updated our mobile app, and finally another inflection point in April when we rolled out Agent V2, which was a lot more powerful, more autonomous, and things like that. It was compounding on top of each other, all these trends. And we're obviously riding an underlying trend, which is kind of the vibe coding trend. And so that's what got us to this place. It's obviously very exciting. It's a long time coming. It feels good. But at the same time, I think keep telling my team, like, we don't have ARR goals at Replit. We think about, we look at metrics. We have some metric goals like conversions and things like that. But we care more about the anecdotes, the individual stories, the companies we're helping, how much money we're saving them, how much money they're making with Replit. Those are, I think ARR is the outcome of that. And that is a lot more exciting, and everyone in the company gets fired up when an entrepreneur builds $1 million business with Replit, or a company saves millions of dollars or increases revenue millions of dollars. All of those happened. And so excited for the future of software development agents. It's just going to be absolutely bonkers. Just over the next 18 to 24 months, it's just going to continue. Every 6 months, we're going to see a new step change. So we have Agent V3 coming up hopefully around September, October. And I think that's going to be another inflection point.
Yeah. I know the quote gets attributed to a lot, but I'd still want our audience to get a little bit more color around this. Every time I look up your name for news and everything, as I was doing the research for this episode as well, it's like Replit CEO says, don't learn how to code. Coding is a waste of time and so on. So, would love to get a little bit more color from you around, do you really think it's anyone who's coming into building now, do you think they should just not learn how to code and focus more on learning how to maybe prompt these tools now?
I'm typically talking to our audience, my audience. I'm not really talking to software engineers per se. Some of them are software engineers, but I'm talking to builders. If you're someone who has always had an idea, wants to go ahead and build a business, you shouldn't spend a year or two learning to code. You shouldn't join a boot camp or go to university and do that. You should just go ahead and build it. And so that's really the core message. If you're someone even at a company, which I think of them as entrepreneurs as well, and you have an idea that can make your company better, that can make revenue for your company, and you can't get engineering resources, which, by the way, there's tens of thousands, if not more, people who have a lot of ideas, but they can't implement them because they don't know how to code. Then yeah, you don't need to learn how to code. You should jump in and build it. Software engineers, like computer science graduates, people going into computer science school, will be still needed. I think in lesser amounts, probably. So this explosion that we've seen in computer science graduates might start to push salaries down, and because the leverage per employee is going up. And as we've seen with the talent wars, it's clear that a really good AI researcher, AI engineer can make a tremendous amount of impact. And so it's no longer a bit of a quantity game. And so, look, I think as software engineers will continue to be important. We're hiring a lot of them. But I think there's going to be a lot more builders, perhaps an order of magnitude, people who build with code than computer science graduates and professional software engineers.
We've covered Replit a lot of times in our newsletter and to our audience. I think thousands of our audience have used it. They love it. At the same time, just a more tactical question for people who are starting to use these tools or want to get into using tools like Replit to build software. What do you think the sort of CS 101 or the building 101 should look like for these folks? What are the core concepts you think folks should familiarize themselves with as they're building?
A lot of it is software skills, softer, not software. So it's sort of clear thinking, systems thinking, being able to take a problem and write a detailed product requirements document, being able to evolve your project methodically. There are a lot of failure cases I see where people put in a very large so you need to put in a detailed prompt up front, but as you're going in and talking to the agent, you want to manage them carefully. Sort of how you're managing an intern or a junior developer. And so, putting in a bunch of text and words and not being clear and being confused, it's going to lead to failure. Which is why we're seeing product managers being really successful with these tools, is because they really excel at communication. So I think that's one important skill. And then curiosity. Again, it's really a bit intangible characteristics of people. Curiosity, being interested in what the agent is doing and looking into its actions and kind of trying to learn from them. And a lot of people pick up coding skills almost by osmosis, by just dealing with the agent. And finally, grit. Look, this technology is not perfect. Makes a lot of mistakes. if you're someone who is easily frustrated and quits easily, you're not going to be successful. So you need a good amount of grit to be able to build something that you can launch and make money from, or achieve your goals.
Yeah.
So maybe it's not a satisfying answer, because I'm giving you, I'm
No,
like,
that-
how do you learn these things? And a lot of it is actually just like, a lot of it is deciding that you want to be someone who's curious and has grit and all of that.
It seems like to some extent, if you have a builder personality, like the world is becoming your oyster. Like, it's becoming much easier. Like some of the things you're mentioning, people who love like tinkering, building things, it's just going to become easier for them, and they can build now commercial businesses much easily than before.
That's absolutely right. Yeah. But I don't want to make it seem that it's not learnable. It is learnable.
Yeah.
But I think the most important quality is grit. Like if you have grit, there are other qualities you'll develop over time.
100%. I'm just like one thing, like I think you mentioned early on in this chat with us as well, right? Like you guys are focused on the outcome. Like how are you enabling builders to generate revenue? And that's kind of really firing up the company as well. Your focus at Replit has been how to make it easy for folks to program. Uh, is the focus going to like now become like not just about programming, but like enabling people to build, and like programming obviously being a core component? Like how do you guys think about that? And then secondly, like, will you keep focusing just on non-technical folks to some extent, as you mentioned your audiences, like, the builder audience, which might be like some technical people, primarily might be non-technical people. Just curious to like hear a bit more about your perspective there.
At the company, in our meetings, I try to discourage splitting people into technical and non-technical, because a lot of people start with Replit, non-technical become technical over time. And you need the software to have power that unfolds over time, and you can peel the layers, and at some point being able to configure things at the systems level, because of certain need you have. So the system needs to be configurable, needs to be robust. You need to be able to work in it as if you're a software engineer. But if you're just starting out, it needs to be super simple as well. So it's a continuum. Like think about, when you learn to code, I remember my experience where, you started with like some command line thing, I'm older, so like basic, or something like that.
When was
But
the first
even
time you wrote a line of code? Just curious to know.
I started using a computer when I was 6, and at the time we had Microsoft DOS. I don't know if you'd consider it
Yeah,
code.
I remember. Yes,
I played Doom and like through DOS.
Yes.
Like, yeah.
yeah, and Prince of Persia as well. Yeah, so I remember DOS.
Yeah. So I don't know if you consider it code, but at 6 I was able to like navigate an MS DOS environment. I think by 8 is like when I actually made my first application, and it was um an app to teach my younger brother, who now works at Replit, math. So like multiplication and addition and all that. It's like a quiz application.
So obviously, like I think like the concept of Replit, like being enabling builders and software becoming easier, massive opportunity in the emerging market as well. As you guys look at this 100 million ARR, like are you seeing like a trend of like considerable adoption happening in developing markets, or is it still like North America, Europe is where you're seeing a lot of your folks come in?
We see a bit. The problem is actually Replit used to be a lot more popular in those parts of the world. Still is in like our free plan, um, but AI is so expensive right now, and especially the way we're approaching building Replit. Like we want to give people as much power as they want to consume. But I'm hoping, as AI gets cheaper, as like the infrastructure, GPUs get cheaper, energy gets cheaper, like everything needs to get cheaper. And I think we're on trend. Token price will continue to collapse. We're already down like whatever, 99%
Yeah,
since
massive.
GPT-3, So I think we need another 99%. I think the labs, Sam Altman talks about, there's a token so cheap to meter or something like that. It feels like the trend, but I don't know when it's going to happen. I think it'll take longer than people expect.
That makes sense. I think like, yeah, cost is definitely like prohibitive to some extent for now, but it'll definitely trending towards a massive shift in the near future. What are some of the most interesting things you have seen users build with their Replit, which you're like, holy shit, that's amazing, and they're using the full potential of the product?
Some of the more interesting things have been on the inside enterprises. And so, we have um, I can't name the company, but it's a large company, someone who works in operations, not a developer, had an idea to optimize some of their systems, which led to conversions conversion lift that is making the company millions of dollars, if not tens of millions.
Wow.
And basically, they had like some kind of routing algorithm as part of their operations, and it was very dumb. And just he made it better. He made one with Replit, and he pointed the servers to it, which is a little tricky if you're not a developers, and was able to like make a really big impact. And the interesting thing is we're finding constantly is that the people closest to the problems have the best ideas to solve these problems.
Yeah.
And that's really what Replit enables. Ahmed George, I think he works at a skincare company, had an idea also in operations, had an idea to optimize some of their processes to save hundreds of hours of labor, and got a quote from a company that software he wanted to build will be $150,000, and said he spent $400 in a couple of weeks building it on Replit, deployed it. His
That's pretty
boss
crazy.
his boss bought it from him for $32,000.
That's
Um,
crazy.
and so the company made money, he made money, the company got more efficient, the company saved money. His coworkers are happier because they don't have to do a lot of routine work they hated. This is like a win all around, right?
I want to interrupt just a little bit there because you said something interesting and I haven't heard this before. Is like someone building something internally and then selling it to the company in like very quick time and very low cost and everything. I think there's like two things. One can be like top down, where like companies actively incentivize their employees to do this. Like, if you build me
Yeah.
something that will save me more time and make me more money, I will buy it off you,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I can buy that, I can commercialize that, whatever I want to do with it. And then for employees, like it's an incentive, right? Like going forward, like if you're listening to this, you can probably build something similar for your company where you can see either time being saved, or revenue being saved, or revenue being made, or frustration being reduced in some way. And you can basically go to your company's management and be like, hey, I built this thing externally. It's doing this thing. I'm happy to sell it to you for X, Y, or Z if you want to buy it. Could be a very nice way for folks to, in a very de-risked and company aligned way, to get into entrepreneurship.
100%. Yeah, 100%. That's why I say entrepreneurship is not just about going out, starting your own company. You can be an entrepreneur within the company you work at. And then there's like individual entrepreneurs that spun up businesses really quickly. I tweet a lot of those stories on Twitter, but have seen someone who built like an ad tech platform and made a couple $100,000 in the first 6 weeks.
Wow.
Wow.
Um, and yeah, I could go on and on. And yeah, again, especially meaningful, not just like the technical aspect that's sometimes interesting, but more interesting is the meaningful change people are making in their lives. Um, and again, that's always been what Replit is about. Like, can you actually improve your life with software?
One more follow-up question on this, right? You mentioned the large company, so operations person leveraged Replit. A lot of these large companies, there's always these IT processes. I think for our audience who work at a lot of large companies, we'd be curious to know, like, uh, is Replit like, pretty easy for folks to like adopt in a large company, and they should like be going forward with that? Because I think that's will be a question popping up in a lot of folks' mind after hearing that story.
Yeah. What we see is start from one person, and usually it's like a champion is really into AI and all that stuff, and then spreads organically in the company. Zillow CEOs just in the New York Times interview talked about how they use Replit to ship software faster. I remember, Zillow, like, when they started using it last year, it was like 1 person, then 20 person. This year it went to 80 people,
Wow.
200 people, and now 500 people, like double-digit percentage of the company now in Replit, and it spreads very, very organically. From the perspective of the company, we don't have to do a lot of sales and marketing. Our sales and marketing is very, very lean. And that's just because like the product is compelling, it's easy to use, and people can jump in and do it.
That makes sense. I think the future builder looks like someone who's a domain expert and can communicate really well and can leverage tools like Replit and other tools which may pop up down the road, and as Replit gets better, like really to build things to solve their true problems. It seems like.
Exactly. You nailed it. Like domain experts. It's like the way I think about it is there's so many people with knowledge in their minds and that they built up over a career and they know they can build a business, an app, a piece of productivity software, operation software to solve these problems, but they're often hindered by how much it costs and how difficult it is to go get like a freelancer to do it.
I want to talk a little bit about just like what's going on with vibe coding right now. Obviously, the whole like kind of trend is exploding. Looks like people are building very tangible things. Replit is undoubtedly looks like one of the biggest success stories here. We've seen vertical things happening in the vibe coding space like uh cursor and windsurf. We're seeing horizontal plays. We saw the recent base 44 acquisition quoted $80 million in the meter, something along those lines. We're seeing Lovable Bolt, other tools as well, and so on. How, just like a top of your head, how big do you think this market really is? Because it feels like there's no end in sight for this.
I think the software engineering market is a little more zero sum. Um, did you see the chart of like Copilot revenue versus Cursor revenue? And they do this X.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that tells you like that market is a little more zero sum for one company to win, other company has to fail, or other service has to fail. But for our markets, it's still developing. It's like a pie that's getting larger. And I don't know what's the potential TAM. Who knows? The way I think about it is like we're starting a revolution, and we're creating the market as much as we're participants in the market. We need to um, evangelize this market. I'm not the biggest fan of like vibe coding as a term. It just in some cases
Too
feels like
vague.
a
Yeah,
little
it's too large. Yeah.
frivolous. But you don't want to fight buzzwords. I've been in this industry long enough. Every buzzword felt annoying at some point, but you just go with the flow. But ultimately, it's about problem solving. That's what it is. It's problem solving. More than it's not about the code. It's about, if at some point Replit agent will be able to abstract everything away. And what's left is you and your problems and your creativity.
A few more questions, and this one's a slightly selfish question because Hassan and I are currently in ideation mode. We're thinking, what we should build next. Obviously, this place is exploding. We're looking very closely at it. When you're ideating around this, like there's like you can sort of like look at it as like an assembly line almost. Like you need to start with finding an idea, then you need to know how to write a good PRD or at least good instructions. Then you need to actually go to some place like Replit and sort of like build this thing out. Then maybe you need like an ending touch where you can make sure that the code isn't that buggy and you can go launch it and so on. Replit seems to have more of the pieces compared to a few other that we've tried in the market. And then the other way we've looked at it is like, can there be another product that can be built horizontally, or can there be another product that can be built in a vertical sense? Obviously, not asking, not asking you to give us anything that Replit plans on building, but just out of curiosity, like, is there anything maybe that Replit and you are not looking at, but you think someone should go out there and build? Just sourcing ideas for startups here, essentially.
I'm very bullish on computer use as a technology. There's like a bunch of interesting tech in the space. There's literally a startup called Computer Use. Um, there's OpenAI operator. Browser base is more like infrastructure, but it's interesting. There's another one called pig.dev for Windows machines. Um, And the reason I think it's a very interesting space is that it's very much parallel to coding agents. Because if you know how to code, you also know how to use a computer, and you could do both in tandem. Um, and the amount of labor hours right now that is going into routine, mind-numbing work is insane. And one way to think about it, yeah, we're going to go automate some jobs, okay. But one way to think about it is we're going to go make it so that people can work on more interesting things.
Yeah.
Anything that machines could do, machines should do, so that we're free to do other things. Look, it's gonna displace some jobs, that's for sure. But ultimately, we have to move forward as civilization. And so I think automating, basic data entry jobs, basic QA, quality assurance testing. There's a tons of those jobs that you can go look at. That's basically very, very routine that you can automate.
Everyone's talking about taste. I've heard you talk about taste as well. I wonder to, I'm asking this question to a lot of people is like, what would you concretely define as what taste is? Do you think it's like a product vision? Is it UI UX sensibility? Is it just having an intuition about what the customer wants? Like, what is sort of like your closest definition or cleanest definition of what taste is and how to cultivate that?
I think ultimately it's about sort of empathy in a weird way. It's about making something that other people would like, that so you have a good sense of what other people would like. And so I think that is, and even if it is like more subconscious, but ultimately that's what taste is like. Or doing something that other people would not know that they would like, and turn out they would like it. Apple is like really great at that. And every Apple release, people get angry and mad and all of that. And but ultimately it changes the industry, and realize that the UI UX patterns that they build. Look, liquid glass might end up being actually as awful as people say. I don't know, but I remember with flat design, they got the same pushback. Before that was skeuomorphism, they got the same pushback. But um, ultimately, taste is about um, having a unique view about what people would like, and being right about it.
So you have a very strong personal brand and considered a real leader in this space as well. A lot of founders try to be apolitical, but you have decided not to, even in the face of some strong kind of responses, especially on Twitter, etc. Just curious to know, like, what is kind of your thought process about your perspectives, and like why you decided to like be very open and build this, have a very open perspective on things.
I can rationalize it in all sorts of ways, but ultimately, like, I think it's a lot of it is an impulse. Um, I've always been, trying to be honest and trying to speak my mind, and I thought we'd be able to live in a better world when we can do that. But specifically about the Gaza genocide, it's about um, zooming out a little bit, just even from a selfish perspective. Uh, 5 years from now, I think people are going to find out that the atrocities in Gaza are even worse than they can imagine. I mean, there's a Harvard study that just came out that showed that like potentially 400,000 people are actually exterminated. So that's insane. That's like, one of the worst atrocities in the world, and definitely in recent history. And like, which side of history do you want to be on? And if you have a platform, you can say something, affect even a little bit out amount of change. I think you should do it.
100%. I'm just curious from your perspective, right? Like a lot of people are always afraid like how you get backlash, especially when you're running a company, which is like a very strong company. Have you kind of faced that backlash from like your investors or other stakeholders about like, hey, like how does it impact our business?
A little bit, but um, I've been uh, outspoken in so many things. I've been kind of trying to be myself all this time, and I think when you want to work with me, you're sort of know what you're getting into, and so people who don't want that typically filter themselves out.
Yeah.
And look, I mean, I think during the period where Silicon Valley was incredibly politically correct and was, what they call woke, which I don't know if it's the best term for it, but like I was also against a lot of that and pro free speech and all of that, and that also just alienated some people, but also created a lot of fans.
Yeah,
And I think
100%.
I think there's a benefit to kind of filtering people out that don't want to be associated with you, and so it's easier for you for them to filter themselves out. Look, but at the same time, we keep Replit in some capacity um, neutral. Like anyone should be able to use Replit.
Yeah.
And but ultimately it's my own opinion. I'm not my company. Uh, Obviously, it's a big part of me and big part of my history, but I'm not
I think
one.
that's an important point. Like, how do you differentiate
Right.
that? Who are like maybe one or two, three, one or two, three people that changed the arc of your company, and what did they do?
Paul Graham certainly getting into YC and his introduction, his advocacy for Replit, his advice, his even personal connection. We at some point we were going through a family tragedy, and he was incredibly supportive. That had nothing to do with the company, but he still was supportive. So all of that has been very, very important. Another one is Roy Bahat. He's
Yeah.
our first institutional investor from Bloomberg Beta. He's kind of a ride or die kind of VC. He's definitely founder first, and he's been available on both professional and personal capacity. My co-founder and wife Haya, I think she gets credit for reviving Replit as an ambition and as a project. And obviously that's instrumental to where we are today.
So outside of Replit, how are you using AI at work and in your personal life?
Yeah, I use a lot of Replit. I build a lot of personal apps. I build a lot of like sleep tracking apps, like quantified self apps. I build a lot of productivity apps. AI still is not integrated in most aspects of our lives. And so you still have to build a lot of these things. Like, why the hell does Gemini not have like a good Gmail plugin? I end up building quite a bit of productivity tools. And yeah, and I use ChatGPT and Perplexity quite a bit, like a lot. Like, I don't know, probably 100 plus times a day.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I'm always like researching stuff and like learning things, and it's like amazing. It's profound how much it changed how fast I can work and get things done.
That's amazing. No, I think like ChatGPT and Perplexity and all these other products definitely made a huge impact. What are you most excited about in the next 6 months? We usually used to ask people a year, but I feel like how fast things have started changing in the last 6 months. A year is too long. What are some developments you're looking out for in the next 2, 3, like maybe 3 to 6 months, which you're like, hey, like really pumped about? Beside obviously Rapid launching its new software agent platform in 2, 3 months.
Not to be extra repetitive, but I'm really hoping and I'm sort of excited about computer use technology actually maturing, because right now it's slow and expensive and buggy. And if it does, it'll unlock a lot of things for Replit, for startup community, for just in general. I think it's one of the biggest unlocks after kind of software engineering agents got a lot better. I think that will make every other potential AI application a lot better.
Amazing. No, I think like computers, like yeah, that computer use technology would be huge for so many products. So quick 5 round. Amjad, you can just give like one line answers. Favorite sci-fi story about computers becoming creative?
I don't know if it's about computers becoming creative, but The City and the Stars is one of my favorite sci-fi stories. It's about like a future. It's like what happens when computers get so advanced and they can like manage every aspect of our lives and all of that, and it's not particularly utopian. Maybe in fact a little dystopian, and shows the importance of humanity.
Most underrated Jordanian dish.
Underrated. Obviously, like everyone probably knows mensef. Mensef is the national dish. It's awesome. Perhaps it's still underrated. Yeah, like I don't think a lot of people actually know about it, especially in the West.
Nice. One gadget on your desk you can't live without.
I don't know. I'm very simple. Like uh like minimalist in a lot of ways. My phone is very important for me. I do a lot of things on it. A lot these days, like I spend more time on my phone than my computer because I'm like often in meetings and on the go and traveling and things like that. I really do wish that Apple gets their shit together and like actually make Apple Intelligence intelligent. So so yeah, that would be my
That'd be
answer.
amazing. And the hardest bug you squashed this year in life or code?
I think I feel like you know, alhamdulillah, the health improvements by doing things your grandma would tell you, like basic things like going to sleep and waking up at around the same time, working out and like eating a little healthier. Like I think a lot of people just like underestimate. Like everyone's looking for hacks or whatever, but just as a programmer, I've always had very wonky sleep schedule and all of that. But now trying to fix that because the demand on my time and energy is so much that and also I'm getting a little older. I'm still 37, but when you get up there, so that's a good trajectory.
It's very interesting. I think like the culture and especially Islam, like there's so many things from health perspective just do which seem normal, but like become very obvious
Yeah,
in
like Silicon
30.
Valley just discovered that drinking is bad for you.
I
Yeah,
was gonna say the exact same thing. Everyone's a low key a closet Muslim now. Like no
yeah.
drinking, staying inside, doing all these things.
Okay, go for a
So
walk.
yeah,
Like the Namaz is technically like to some extent like yoga. Like you're just like doing all these
Right.
steps and the five. It's kind of like very interesting as you now relate to the West and
everyone's
East.
discovering spirituality, going religious, and so on. So no, 100%. I couldn't agree more. Amjad, I know we're a little bit over time. Extremely grateful for you taking the time to do this with us. Extremely kind of you. We're pumped for how this episode turns out. And yeah, thank you for this.
No, thank you. Thank you for the work you're doing. You obviously built a great audience and service, and I look forward to your product. So excited to see what you guys are gonna do.